Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you will learn to master the business of yoga with guests from around the world who have experienced becoming successful yoga teachers, studio owners, and much more. Now, here's your host, Amanda Kingsmith.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the MBOM podcast. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode of the show. Today, I am super excited to be chatting with you about workflows and sharing personally how I've set up my workflows and what I found to work best for me. It's been a while since I've done a solo episode in this style, and for 2020, my plan is to do more of this. Since the start of the year, I've been doing weekly Facebook Lives in the Facebook group, Yoga Business Badasses. And what I've realized from this is how much I miss talking to you about things that I'm really passionate about within the business of yoga. So going forward, you can expect more episodes just like this. And if you like these episodes and you have any topics that you'd love to hear on the show, please make sure that you reach out to me and let me know. Before we dive into today's episode, just a quick word from our sponsor. This episode of the podcast is brought to you in part by Offering Tree. When you're a yoga teacher and you're trying to build your digital presence, it can be daunting. First, you might need a website. There are a lot of great tools for building websites like WordPress, Wix, and Squarespace. Then you need a way to email your students. Again, there are tools for that, like MailChimp and Constant Contact. But that's another account to pay for and a password to remember. Then you need a way to schedule and register your students. Again, there are tools for that. But it's another account to create and pay for and another password to remember. Oh wait, how do I integrate my scheduling tool with my website? If you're going crazy, I totally get that. So instead of putting all of this stuff off for another day because it's too daunting, let me tell you about a better way. Offering Tree set out to make creating your digital presence fun, easy, and affordable. With one account, you can create a website in minutes that has your schedule built right in. They also have email marketing tools to collect email addresses, send newsletters, and automated emails to your subscribers. It all works seamlessly together with one account and one subscription. To learn more about what Offering Tree can do for your digital presence, visit offeringtree.com/MBOM. Offering Tree has been supporting MBOM for over a year now, and I not only love the product and service that they've created, but I also love the people. I'm a big fan of supporting small businesses because I'm a small business myself. Small businesses supporting other small businesses is probably one of my favorite things ever, and it's really cool when I get to hop on a partner meeting and I get to talk with the co-founders of this product. As well, Offering Tree is providing special pricing for MBOM listeners. So be sure to head over and visit offeringtree.com/MBOM to receive your discount. Once again, offeringtree.com/MBOM. And as always, thank you so much to Offering Tree for sponsoring the show. If you are a yoga teacher in need of a website and the tech side is challenging for you, I highly recommend checking out Offering Tree. All right, now on to workflows. And the reason why this topic is important to me is that being a yoga teacher isn't just about being a yoga teacher. It's also about being a parent, a partner, a friend, and of course, a business owner. One of the biggest things I hear from the yoga teachers that I work with is that they don't identify as business owners and as yoga teachers. We are entrepreneurs and we are business owners. So this is a super, super, super important identification that we need to be making for ourselves. And the great thing about this is that it means that we have all of the business owner benefits, like more control over our schedules and how much money we make. But it also means that we really need to learn how to manage our time wisely so that we can get everything that we need to get done. When it comes to workflow, I'm a really big advocate of having time for us. To me, this means time for self-care activities or things that fill up your bucket. Me time to do whatever you want, and of course, time with your family and friends. A few years ago, I was in a challenging place financially with my business, and I hustled hard to build my business and increase my revenue. And although I was able to grow a ton and make a lot more money, I also completely exhausted myself. Since then, I've spent a lot of time looking at how I can make my workflows about doing less, working smarter rather than harder, and being as efficient with my time as possible. So when I approach the topic of workflow, I definitely believe in hustle and getting stuff done, but I also believe in setting boundaries, taking time off, and of course, making time for personal self-care. This is so important as yoga teachers, as business owners, as parents, and just as humans in general. Regardless of what your life situation is, you deserve to budget in some time for self-care and relaxation. Okay, so the first thing to think about when it comes to workflows is the balance of managing your energy with managing your tasks. There are always going to be certain tasks that require more of our energy, and we have to learn to manage that properly so that we don't burn out. For example, teaching yoga for me is a huge energy output. This means that I don't love to cram my days where I teach yoga with other tasks that are also high energy output tasks. Other tasks for me that require a lot of my mental or physical energy are doing one-on-one coaching and consultation calls. These calls are one of the most rewarding things that I get to do in my business, but they also require a lot of my energy, so I need to strike a balance with how many I do in one day and also in one week. Podcast interviews are one of the most rewarding and one of my favorite parts of my business, but these are also really energetically draining. For me, I can't do more than 3 per day, or ideally I don't do more than 3 per day, and I ideally only like to do about 10 per month between all the podcasts that I host. So this takes a little bit of strategic scheduling to make that happen and make sure I have episodes for each of my podcasts every single month. Another task for me that feels like a high energy output is recording YouTube videos. This one is actually probably the most high energy output for me personally. Part of this is because of the tech side. It means setting up where I'm going to record, brainstorming the content, and then sitting down to actually do the recording. And then after I record, I need to edit the videos. And by the time I'm done with all of that, I feel totally wiped. And there's still the uploading and then the actual marketing of them. So because of this, I usually batch film videos, and I usually save the editing and the uploading for a different day so that I don't go totally crazy. A whole day of filming for me is absolutely absurd, but that's just me personally. So those are a few examples in my business of high energy output tasks that I have on my schedule. But the question here is, how do you identify what tasks are causing you a lot of energy output? Well, you need to first identify all of the tasks that you do and then think critically about how much energy they require you to put in the moment and how they make you feel afterwards. So the first thing that I want you to do is write out all of the tasks that you currently have on your plate and identify the energy output that they require. If you're driving or walking or at the gym or doing dishes or anything like that while you're listening to this, don't worry, there's a PDF for this in the show notes that you can go and download so that you can do this later. Or if you want to write this out as you go, hit pause, head on over to mbomyoga.com/workflow, and then download the PDF there to follow along. Or of course, you can just use a notebook as you go, whatever works for you. Okay, so just as a reminder, step 1 is considering all of the tasks that you have on your plate and then identifying if they're high energy or low energy output tasks and writing all of that down. And the way that you can identify if they're high energy or low energy output tasks is, one, kind of trust your gut, trust your intuition with this, but thinking about what goes into it and then how you feel after. So for example, for me with teaching yoga, I feel really rewarded after and I love doing it, but I also feel this sense of sort of like my bucket is a bit empty and I need a little bit of time to recharge after. So kind of identifying what tasks leave you feeling like that, which ones leave you feeling with your bucket more full, and just being really honest, because there's no right or wrong with this. Okay, so once you have a grasp on the idea of energy in and energy out and the tasks that require more of your energy and tasks that require less of your energy, it will be hugely beneficial for you as we dive into looking at how to set up your schedule. So scheduling is the next thing with workflows, and I hope that nobody's hitting pause and delete on this at this point, because I know that talking about calendars is not the most fun thing to do, but honestly, as business owners, this is so necessary. We have to have these conversations and we have to get these workflows in place so that we can really thrive in our businesses. So step 1 with this is identifying how you want to keep track of your schedule and your tasks. So I'll start by walking you through my workflow for this to help give you a better idea of what you might want to do. So I use my Google Calendar for booking consultation calls as well as podcast interviews. But honestly, I live and breathe by my physical calendar. So even once something gets booked, I manually put it into my physical calendar. For you, this might sound like a lot of added work, but for me, this is something that has been hugely helpful for me. And the reason why is that I find that I already spend a lot of time on my phone and my computer, and I really love to have the physical calendar that sits beside me in my workspace that I can easily look at without getting distracted by something else. So I really love to be able to, at night or in the morning, as I'm getting ready for my day or shutting down for the day, getting ready for the next day, I love to be able to look at what my following day looks like or what that day looks like and have a clear picture of everything. Now, for me, I've tried a couple of different planners over the last couple of years, and my absolute favorite is the Passion Planner. What I love about the Passion Planner is that every week takes up 2 full pages when it's open. So when you open it, it's like the size of one regular 8.5 by 11 page if you get kind of the medium normal size one. And each half of it is half of the week. And on each day of the week, there's space to write beside certain times. So it outlines times from early in the morning to late at night so that you can write stuff in there. There's also a space for a personal and professional to-do list at the bottom. And then there's a blank space where you can put whatever you want. You can draw something, you could make notes, whatever it is that you feel like putting there, you could leave it blank. And then each week you can set a focus, and there's a space to write about what went well in your week. And this is one of my favorite things. I love to, at the end of the week, think about what I did and what was really great about the week. And then each week also has a quote, and I'm a sucker for a good quote. So that's just like an added bonus for me. And guys, I'm not sponsored or endorsed by Passion Planner. This is just a product that I genuinely love. So just wanted to make sure that you knew that as we talk about this. So the first thing I would encourage you to do is to take a look at your current calendar system. And using a digital calendar is great, and so is using a paper calendar. As long as you're using it, it's great. It's not about one thing being better than another thing. Any type of calendar system is going to be really great. If you aren't using a calendar system, however, this is going to be a hugely important part of getting your workflow in order. And just saying, oh, it's all in my head, that's not a calendar system. And honestly, to grow and thrive in your business, these things need to get out of your head. Obviously, the human brain is quite complex and way more complex than the RAM on a computer. But if you think about the computer, there's only so much space in it. And, I always have a lot of tabs open. And I find that if I have a ton of programs open, my computer starts overheating. I can hear the fan going. I'll click on things. The rainbow wheel starts going because I have a MacBook. And to me, that's how I think about the mind as well. If you're keeping all of the yoga classes that you teach each week, plus all of the privates and who's paid and who hasn't, as well as all the admin tasks that you need to get done in your head, there's no space for creativity within your business. There's no space in there. And it's really important that we get this stuff down and out on paper so that we can be more efficient with our workflows. All right, so each week I start by writing out my pivot points. Pivot points are things that have to get done at a certain time, like yoga classes and teaching, consultation calls I have booked, or podcast interviews I have scheduled. They are not really deadlines per se, but tasks that actually have to be done at a certain time. And this is the first thing I do. I sit down and I put my pivot points into my Passion Planner, or if you're using Google Calendars, you could put them into your calendars as regularly occurring events. The next thing I do is look at whether or not these are high or low energy tasks, and then I schedule time around them based on that. So for example, I record podcast interviews for MBOM on Wednesdays. My scheduling software is set up so that someone can schedule at 10 a.m., 11:30 a.m., and 1:30 p.m. This meets my max per day of how many interviews I ideally like to do, which, as I mentioned before, is 3. And this is the number that I can do and still feel really good afterwards. And then the timing also gives me a buffer in between to decompress, relax, and eat some food. Don't forget about eating, because that is super important and something us entrepreneurs can easily forget. The reason I have my schedule set up like this is because I've gone through the process of having interviews scheduled at 10, 11, 12, 1:30, 3, 4, or, a bunch of calls spaced in between there. And I just feel like if I have back-to-back calls, I don't even have time to, get off the phone, go to the bathroom and fill up my water. That's hardly time to decompress and get ready for the next interview, which means I'm not showing up as good as I could for both my guest as well as for you guys listening to the show. So identify if your pivot points are high or low energy tasks, and then how much time you want to buffer in before and after. And we do this for 2 reasons. So number 1 is to prevent burnout, and number 2 is to ensure that we can set ourselves up for success. Often when people put together workflows, they cram a bunch of stuff in a day and then feel disappointed when they don't get it all done, and they feel like the organizational systems don't work for them. The reality is that the systems only work if we set them up in a realistic way. All right, there's more I want to talk about pivot points, but we're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors, Punchpass. Are you looking for inspiration as we begin the new year? Today, I want to tell you why studios around the world love Punchpass studio management software. Charlotte has found that selling her passes online through Punchpass has helped her cash flow endlessly. And online pre-registration has meant that she always knows how many clients will show up for class. Dan says simply that Punchpass is just so easy for people, and it makes him and his business look incredibly professional. Marquita says that the team at Punchpass was attentive to her, which she really appreciated. She says that if she had a question, it was going to get answered. Laura introduced Punchpass's memberships so she can automatically collect payment from her clients. She has been amazed at how much energy, excitement, and growth her business has experienced as a result. Amanda was totally overwhelmed with the other software that she was using. She needed something more simple, and she could see that Punchpass seemed to get it. She found it quick and easy to move from one software into another, into Punchpass, and she loves how Punchpass provides her with usable information at her fingertips. Head on over to punchpass.com/MBOM to read more stories about people who have transformed their businesses with Punchpass. And you are invited to try Punchpass for free for 2 weeks and see for yourself how it might work for you. Once again, it's punchpass.com/MBOM. Okay, back to the episode. All right, I'm back and continuing with the conversation on workflows. And just quick before we continue talking about pivot points, I just wanted to thank you guys for checking out Punchpass, checking out Offering Tree, and remind you that the companies that I work with are companies that I have done a lot of research on, that I've gotten to know the people at the companies really well, and they're companies that I really believe in for yoga teachers and for those of us with yoga businesses. So thank you so much for their support, and thank you so much for you for listening to that and checking them out. All right. Back to pivot points. So with pivot points, it's also important to set up pivot points in your personal life too. So we've talked about, the professional side of things, adding in your yoga classes, your private clients, all that good stuff. But it's also important to schedule events like birthday parties or coffee dates with a friend or a networking event that you want to go to, or anything that you booked in that you need to be at a certain time. So part of managing our workflows is also managing our personal lives appropriately too. And I am definitely in favor of people choosing how they want to set up their personal lives, but I'm not in favor of us sacrificing our friendships or the other things in our lives that are important to us for our businesses. I think that they can work cohesively together if we set up good systems. All right, so at this point, you should list out all of your pivot points. You should set up your buffer time for them, and you should put them in your calendar system. And once you've got that set up, the next step is to move on to a to-do list. So I've played around with a ton of different methods with this, everything from sticky notes all over the house to scraps of paper that I write on every single day to notebooks to all types of softwares. And I'll tell you a little bit about the workflow that I've found to be the best for me so far. So I use my passion planner to write out action items that need to get done on certain dates. For example, if an episode of my travel podcast is going out on Thursday, I know that I need to schedule the social media and the email for the guest on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, I need to tag and share the episode. Those 2 tasks go in my passion planner so that I can clearly see them. Although they're small tasks, I'm a firm believer, like I said before, in keeping nothing in my head. So any task that needs to get done goes down on paper or in my task list manager. And for me, this is the type of task that it's different than a pivot point because it doesn't need to get done at a certain time, but it does need to get done that day. That's why it's really important that it goes on my passion planner and that I see it for that day. There are a ton of different softwares out there that can help with task list managing or project management, like Asana and Trello. For me personally, I really like Todoist, and it's spelled Todoist, exactly like it sounds. And the reason that I really like Todoist is that I can create daily lists, and then I can assign tasks to a certain day that I want to get them done, as well as to a certain project. So for me, I work with a couple different yoga studios, and I also have a couple different podcast projects I'm working on. So it's really helpful to keep my different stuff that I'm working on organized by being able to assign it to a project, yet seeing it on the same day. This is one of the things I love about Todoist. So if you're working with a couple different businesses or a couple different projects, but the idea of doing, all travel podcast day or all holistic health coaching day or all yoga teaching day doesn't really work for you, Todoist might be a really great option for that. I also really love it because I can create folders for projects that I'm either working on or would like to work on, and then assign tasks in there. So for example, I have an MBOM folder and I write down different ideas for podcast episodes as they come to me. I have a yoga video folder, so for my Yoga Anywhere project, and I write down different video ideas that I have. And they can just live there so that when it comes time to putting together podcast episodes or filming videos, I can easily go there and see my ideas. And then once I finish a task or complete an idea, I get to check it off and it disappears. And I really love that. One of the things that made me really resistant about shifting to a non-paper system of to-do lists was the fact that I love the checking off process. But with Todoist, you get to hit a little button, checks it off, and it disappears. And that feels really rewarding to me. So what I would recommend for you guys is to check out a few different softwares and see what you like best. The most popular ones that I know of and that I hear from yoga teachers are Asana, Trello, and Todoist, and just sign up for them. They are all free at the basic level, and just play around and see how they work for your business. The reason why so many different softwares exist is because people do different things, and it's amazing because we have so many choices to choose from, and we can really choose what's going to work best for us. Now, the reason that I don't use my entire to-do list in my passion planner is because I actually have too much going on. So it's just too many tasks. I really love to look at my week and my day and get a clear picture of what I have going on, and then go to Todoist to see the other things on my list to do. So I kind of structure it in. I have some reoccurring tasks that I put in Todoist because that's a really simple feature that they have that have to get done on certain days. And then I'll put some important things in there, but for the most part, if it's something that has to get done on a certain day, I usually add it to my passion planner so I can see it. And then my other stuff is like tasks that are important, but not necessarily my most important task. So it just really gives me a really clear picture and sense about what is most important for me to do and when I need to do it. And this is huge. Really, the systems need to be set up in a way that allows you to understand what is the most important thing that you need to get done, when you need to get it done, and make sure that you have a clear idea of when you need to do things and how long they're going to take you so that you're not kind of overfilling your schedule in any way. Okay, so at this point, what I'd like you to do is do a brain dump of your whole to-do list, anywhere on a piece of paper, whatever it is, in the PDF I've provided, on a note in your phone or on your computer. And then I'd like you to choose a software or get a notebook to organize all your tasks into, and organize them by week or by date. And now while you're doing this, I want you to keep in mind that it's important to be realistic. I would not recommend that you schedule more than 5 to-do list items unless they're super small and easy to complete per day. In fact, I suggest 3 action items, and each day that you identify your most important task and focus on that first. This will really help you manage your time. So brain dump your whole to-do list. Find a software that works for you. If you're totally against a software, get a notebook that you can write this stuff down in, and take your brain dump of everything and schedule stuff out over the next couple of weeks. Don't put anything more than 3 3 to 5 items, depending on the task, per day, and be really realistic with yourself. One thing that I've really struggled with and still kind of do struggle with is the idea that everything needs to get done all at once. And as you set this up, you'll probably find that you have way more to-do list items than time. And this is where the prioritization is so important. You have to be clear and honest with yourself about what is most important and then schedule it that way. Something you want to do now might not get done until tomorrow, and that's okay. All right, say it with me. It's okay to do that task next week. Again, it's okay to do that task next week. One more time. It's okay to do that task next week. Everything will get done, but it will take time and patience with ourselves. Remember, slow and steady wins the race, and really business isn't even a race. So as long as you work on completing tasks every day, you'll get everything you want to get done, and you're going to get it done in a way that feels much more easeful and much less stressful. This is probably the most important thing to me from this episode, is this idea of we've all these things to do. And for most of us, we're probably like, yeah, but they all need to get done right now. Get clear on really what needs to get done right now and what can get done tomorrow, or what can get done the following day, or what can get done the following week. Because the reality is if you put them all on your task list for today, and then you're teaching a bunch and you have private clients and you're running around and you're busy, they're not going to get done anyways. And it's just going to feel like you disappointed yourself, or you disappointed the people that you owe things to. So instead of doing things like that, and I speak from experience. I've done so much of that in the past, and that's why I can speak to it so clearly. So instead of doing that, just be really honest with yourself about your time. Set up a couple tasks, identify one most important thing to get done, prioritize that first, then do your other things as you have time throughout the day, and do it in a calm way. I promise you, everything will get done, and you're going to feel so much better about it. Okay, so now that you have a clear picture of your schedule, what you have going on, and the action items on your to-do list, I would recommend setting some boundaries. The boundaries that I have worked into my workflow are that I don't generally take calls on Mondays or Fridays. I don't take calls before 9 a.m. or 6 p.m. And ideally, I actually don't do calls between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Sundays are my scheduled day off where I rarely do any work. And of course, there are always times when I make exceptions to these, like a really important project, or, a client has an emergency, or, I'm going on vacation, so I rearrange my schedule, or, maybe I schedule a coffee date, with a friend during the day and I end up working later than normal. But in general, I try not to make exceptions for the most part, because this time is really important for me. And the thing that I've struggled with most is once I veer into working later, or once I veer into saying yes to one call earlier or later, then it's really, really hard to get out of that schedule of not making exceptions. So set boundaries for yourself and stick to them. Now is the time that you look at your schedule and you set some work boundaries, knowing that it may mean adjusting your to-do list so that you can realistically achieve what you want to achieve. Don't skip out on the boundaries or the self-care time, because this stuff is so important. Okay, this is a lot. And before I finish up this episode, I want to talk about one more thing, and that is making time to work on projects. It's so important to create time to do your daily tasks, but it's also important to build in time to work on other projects. So if you don't create time to work on projects, it'll be challenging to propel your business forward. Here's how I go about working on projects. I generally look at my projects 4 to 6 months out. So I have at least some idea of what projects I'll be working on in April, May, even though it's only February right now. If that sounds way too crazy for you at this point, that's okay. Just think about the project you'd like to work on for this month or the following month, and then go from there with it. So each month I identify one project that I'd like to work on that will propel my business forward in the direction that I'd like to go. And I identify all the action items that need to get done for me to complete this project, and then I schedule that into my calendar. One thing that's really important about this is that just like tasks, you can overwhelm yourself by trying to complete too much at once. So I have this analogy that I really love because I really love pizza. So if you worked with me one-on-one, you may have heard this, and it's that we don't try to eat the whole pizza at once. So when the pizza man comes to your house and he drops off the large pizza, you're not going to open up the box and just take the whole pizza out. I mean, the pizza man's already cut up the pizza because we're not going to do that. So instead we get a plate and we take a couple of slices onto our plate and then we eat them. And eventually we will eat the whole pizza, but we're not going to just try to pick the whole thing up and shove it in our mouths. That would be ridiculous, right? And the same goes for our business. We realistically can't teach 10 yoga classes per week, attend to the admin side of our business, be a parent, a partner, all while building content for a bunch of workshops and courses. This just isn't feasible. So instead, choose one project per month and work diligently on getting that done. It will be more productive for you if you can teach 10 great yoga classes per week, attend to the admin side of your business in a reasonable time, be a great parent, a great partner, and create one workshop with great content that you sell out and you make a bunch of money on. And if it's not about money for you, maybe you're able to connect with a bunch of students and it feels really good. That's going to feel so much better than trying to half-ass a bunch of content for 4 workshops and 1 course. Now, remember how I said I don't take calls on Mondays or Fridays? Well, project time is why. I like to use that time for completing tasks and delivering on things that I owe clients or people that I work with, but I also like to budget in project time here. And when I budget in project time, I schedule it into my calendar like a pivot point so that it actually gets done. And so the way that I complete this is that I treat that project time as seriously as I treat showing up for a yoga class. And that is so, so important. So for me, my project for February is to launch a new podcast called Matcha Mornings, which I'll tell you more about soon. It's actually going to be launching at the beginning of March, but I'm doing all the prep for that right now. So that is the only additional project I'm working on this month outside of my day-to-day and week-to-week tasks. Next month, so the month of March, I'm working on doing revisions for Yoga Business Bootcamp so that it'll be even better than ever when I relaunch it in the month of April. So hopefully that all makes sense. But by identifying one main project to work on each month on top of my regular tasks, I'm able to propel my business forward in the direction I want to go while not overwhelming myself, digging into my personal time or reaching burnout. And although I am hardly perfect, I feel that this structure has really helped me to set myself and my business up for success. So in the PDF that I've provided for you, if you'd like, it's at mbomyoga.com/workflow. There are spaces for all of this stuff. And there's space for you to write all about this and really get set up for success with it. So before we wrap up, I just want to do a quick little recap about what I do or what I use to manage my workflow. So the first thing was Google Calendar and my Passion Planner for my scheduling system. So I have things that get booked via my automated systems through Google Calendar. I get notifications. They live in my calendar so people can't double book, but then I also put them in my Passion Planner. So everything that I have as a pivot point lives in my Passion Planner so that I know when I have to show up for things. So for many of you listening, this will be things like classes you're teaching, privates you've scheduled, other jobs you may work, doctor's appointments, coffee dates with friends, and things like networking events. So make sure you write all that stuff out and get it into your system and get it into your calendar system as non-negotiable things where you have to show up on time at a certain time. I also set up that budgeting time around them based on if they're higher low energy tasks. So make sure you set up that too. So on top of the commute time that you might have for a yoga class, don't set up an appointment for right when you get home, ideally. Give yourself another little buffer time depending on how, full or empty your bucket feels after you teach. Next, I have Todoist for my task list manager and for keeping track of bigger projects. I write down all of my tasks and then I put them in my task list manager and I schedule them out strategically based on what's most important for me to get done and what I have time for. So for you, finding a task list manager, anything from a piece of paper to Todoist to a different type of software, or perhaps using your calendar system depending on how much you have on your plate. And with this, Set yourself up for success with 3 to 5 actionable tasks per day, and each day identify your most important tasks so that you can be as efficient as possible. This has been a game changer for me. I was definitely in the camp a couple years ago of putting 10 different action items on my list, and then at the end of the day being like, oh, well, I wasn't super productive today because I didn't get them all done. Trying to get that amount done is just crazy. It's super crazy. It feels so much better to just have 3 to 5 actionable tasks per day and then to actually complete them. And I think it's worth mentioning too that if you finish those tasks in more time than you thought you would, this is why you have a task list manager. This is why you can go and look and see, okay, what else was on my to-do list? Or there are a couple things that, are kind of background items or back burner items that I can get done. What's most important for tomorrow? Do I have time to complete that? Can I do it today? Do I have everything for that? Know that you can set yourself up for success while still being flexible. All right, the next thing is setting boundaries in my schedule and sticking to them. This is so important. Creating hours for myself, creating days that I'm off, creating limits around when or when not I'll take calls with people, and then making sure that I've got a good amount of time for myself scheduled in. Finally, choose one project per month and schedule that in. Choose a project that makes you feel excited, that feels like it's propelling your business forward, and look at your calendar as one project per month so that you don't overwhelm yourself. Don't forget, I've got a PDF for you in the show notes. Once again, mbomyoga.com/workflow. It's totally free if you want to go and download it. And of course, if you want to chat about anything I've talked about, you can send me an email at info@mbomyoga.com. I always love hearing from you guys. And one last quick thing that I'll mention before I wrap up this episode is that I've also just recently opened my consultation schedule back up. My calendar has been pretty closed off for close to a year now due to some other work obligations, training, a lot of teaching stuff going on, and I am super excited to announce that I am taking on more clients. So if you've enjoyed this conversation and want to dive deeper with me in talking about workflows, self-care, productivity, and how to do more in less time without burning out, or anything yoga business related, you can book a call at mbomyoga.com/consulting. I would love to meet with you. All right, that's all for me today. As always, you can find the show notes on the website, mbomyoga.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And of course, you can join the private Facebook community at Yoga Business Badasses. I'm continuing to do weekly lives every single week on Wednesdays, normally around 1 p.m. Eastern. And I'd love for you to join the group so that you could be a part of those and be a part of the conversations we're having about teaching yoga and the business of yoga. All right, thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.